Before we go, I guess it is our duty to refer to the episode of As the Bloodline Turns on the Fox Network this past Friday night, October 20th. Some people used to call it Smackdown, but nobody really gets smacked anymore. Nobody goes down. They just talk to each other a lot. This would have been a great wrestling program for 2 hours if the three little matches hadn't gotten in the way of all of the dramatics and the emoting, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I actually ended up fast forwarding through the wrestling.
Yeah,
to get to what was going to happen.
To get to what was going to happen. I wish we'd get these matches out of the way so we could get to what's going to happen. What the fuck is going on?
And that's not a statement about me as a fan as much as the way they put this show together.
Yeah, it's what they're telling you. It's like, we put these on in between the segments with the stars that do interesting things. So it's just kind of a placeholder. But hey.
Well, that was SmackDown, ladies and gentlemen.
No, if they don't care, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if I get a mean and stony stare. If I'm not successful, it won't be distressful, 'cause I don't care.
All right. It's the best of Kevin Meaney here on the Jim Cornette Experience this week.
Who is Kevin Meaney?
All right, well, back to SmackDown.
All right, well, let's get back to the smack. So the smack of the matter was that they recapped the Bloodline interaction with John Cena and LA Knight and the shocking incidents that have gone on that we've already spoken about previously on the previous programs. And there was Paul Lee standing in the ring. They put him right in the middle of the ring because if he gets too far to one side or the other, things tends to start tipping.
Will you stop? How come you can't leave him alone? It's every week.
He's brilliant. He's the best performer in the company. I'm about to praise him to the heavens about his verbal linguistics.
Good.
And he's back to the whole, it's not only the Sharpie hair now, but it's like the wide-tipped industrial Sharpie black marker. He's just drawn like 6 hairs on each side that go back straight back.
It's brilliant. And it's what he has done in the last few months by making his hair part of his emotional state so that it changes color based on what's going on, if Roman's there or not, is one of the most brilliant things he's ever done.
But now he's wearing makeup too. Did you notice that?
Yeah, he got real pale when Roman was gone. By the end of Roman being gone, he was pale with gray hair. He looked sick. Yeah, and now he's back to being orange Paul Heyman.
Not one blemish on his face. The hairs, all 12 of them, are black. He's wearing more makeup than Betty Davis and whatever happened to Baby Jane, but it's smooth. His whole face is smooth, except they can't do anything about the bags, though. He's got alligator bags under his eyes. He's worth so much money. But anyway, he was in the ring there, and he was praising Jimmy for costing Cody and Jay the tag team title, and of course had to mention that the LA Times broke the news earlier. Is the Los Angeles Times now? There's nothing going on in the world that the LA Times has to resort to breaking news about the WWE title matches?
Because there's a reason why every bozo with a website covers wrestling, and there's a reason why every newspaper or every online news source looks for a way eventually to cover wrestling. Wrestling gets clicks. So once you understand that, you'll play ball. That's why, everything, it's Sports Illustrated broke this story. ESPN broke the story. Yeah, you gave them a story and said, here, we'll allow you to run with it, and then we'll say you did.
Well, Roman is going to defend the title in Saudi Arabia against LA Knight.
It was a big exclusive story. The source was WWE.
And it took tons of, like a dentistry degree to pull it out of him. A serious interrogation.
Before you even move on with where this segment goes, can I just say when he said that, I was disappointed. I'm not a big fan of the afternoon shows or giving the big main event. I understand why Saudi Arabia's getting Logan Paul.
Well, they're making more money on those than they are on the ones they actually expect people to watch and charge for.
But when you put that as the main event of a Saudi show, it almost sends a message. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me, it gives me the feeling, they're not taking him seriously. They're not putting him in the main event of one of the real pay-per-views. It's the sold show in the middle of the day. That's what scares me when I said I don't want him to be just a stepping stone last time we talked about him. It worries me when I hear that.
Well, but perhaps this is the start of an ongoing interaction between the two of them. We can hope. But nevertheless, did you notice, speaking of I don't know what, but maybe making something a little less important, Paul's standing in the ring. He announces this big match, and they interrupted it for music and graphics to go up over the screen while I thought that was it. That's the end of his promo. And the announcers are plugging it, and then they go back to Paul in the ring. So they're now interrupting the live interviews with commercial announcements and reinforcements.
It's the difference between the light and the dark. The House of Black have the ability to turn everything off. Paul Heyman has the ability to get the cryon set up while he's talking.
Turn everything. It's never been said about Paul Heyman that he had the ability to turn everything on, especially the female gender. But nevertheless, so he says, so everyone is a fan of LA Knight. And if he says, if you are a fan of LA Knight, and the fans, of course, go, yeah. And Paul said, don't do that while I'm talking. And just, huge boos for that. But you better watch Crown Jewel because it's the last time you're going to see LA Knight. It was a great promo set to match up. And bam, here comes LA Knight. And he snatches the microphone and he starts intimidating Paul just by his presence and the manner that he's speaking. And Paul is such a great, quivering, flinching. It's almost like you can imagine that's what Tony Khan looked like when Punk was yelling at him, right? He's just trembling. And at first, LA Knight says, get out of the ring and I'm going to talk. And then he tries to go. He says, no, wait a minute, come back here. And so LA Knight, again, he worked it perfect and Paul's reactions were great. And he said, go ahead and tell me what you think Roman Reigns is going to do. Well, anyway, he finally tells Paulie off, and he says, tell Roman Reigns whose game this is, LA Knight. And boom, and he leaves. And it was a good segment because the babyface came out and had some bass in his voice and wasn't intimidated and didn't get the shit kicked out of him already. And when you think 6 months ago, this guy was Max Dupree. And Vince probably wasn't a fan for the same of LA Knight for the same reason why the fans are fans of him, because he acts like a fucking wrestler. He doesn't come out there and worry about who his friends are and say it's always been his dream. He used to lie awake at night with a little chubby and hope he'd be on the TV and thank you for the opportunity. He acts like a fucking wrestler. That's why the fans like him. What'd you think of this oratorial performance?
It was a good opening segment once we finally got to it. Once what was it, 6 minutes of recaps or whatever before Heyman even said a word? 7 minutes?
It was a while. Well, we were better than 15 minutes deep in the show just when this was over.
Heyman's great out there. If I could ask Paul Heyman one question, and I don't even know how exactly I would phrase it, when did he learn to appreciate simplicity? I feel like in the early days, he was good. I was always a fan of his, but he was trying to do a lot, and it was almost too much at times. But it worked for him, for that character. But now it's like he's learned either because of age and he has to, or just whatever it is. It feels like he's appreciated that you don't have to do as much and you can go further with that.
Well, and that's the thing, and you're right, in large part, is that I wouldn't be out there doing the, machine gun promos for 3 minutes nonstop on TBS now because it's 40 years fucking later and I got to breathe every once in a while. And with Paul, the psycho yuppie, he was expected to be bouncing off the walls and out of control. But as he gained both maturity and 150 pounds, he couldn't do that. And he was never really physically gifted in that aspect of, the business, but he ain't gonna be taking bumps now. I wouldn't be taking bumps now. I could, I just don't want to. I'd hurt myself. But But so, and part of that is, and he's different. He's older. He's the wise man now. Whereas I would probably, and have been in my various appearances, more of the cranky old man rather than the, motor mouth kid running around. I would still, if I was managing, I would have to be more active at ringside than he is, at least reacting and stressing or gloating or glorifying or whatever, because that's just me and I'm hyper anyway. But that was that opening segment.
And what'd you say? It ended at 15 minutes?
Well, it was a little bit, somewhere around there. Somewhere around 15 minutes deep, because the next match, or the first match, well, go ahead.
I'll just say, though, I mean, and again, I'm a wrestling fan, but the realities of what this show is, at this point in time, when SmackDown begins with a match, I'm disappointed. You almost expect it now to begin with the segment that will lay out usually what the story for the whole episode is, the story you've been waiting a week to see or hear anything about. If they don't begin with a segment like this, I'm almost disappointed at this point. And it's different than one of the Raw ones. It really is.
Well, yeah, but also part of it may be that if they open with a match, it's going to be somebody you probably don't want to see. Whereas if they open with this live interview, it's with one of the biggest deals going on in the company.
But that's the problem. Look at this SmackDown specifically. Every single match that was on the show very easily just could have been the opening match of SmackDown. The matches didn't matter at all. It was all about these segments. But anyway, to your point, a good opening segment.
Well, yes, and they just had to break them up with the matches to, fill in the time until they did something big again. And that's what I'm saying with this. The match, the first match was Escobar and Montez Ford. And by the time that was over, we were a little bit past 30 minutes into the show. And they didn't have a goddamn half-hour Broadway or whatever, so they're filling up time.
You see, there are things that you care about on a week-to-week basis, and then there are things, at least for me, that I'm willing to wait until the pay-per-view to watch a match without commercials to see if I care at all about this stuff. But yes, I don't want to invest time in the LWO versus the Street Profits and Lashley. It just doesn't do it for me.
Well, and also, again, the finish, real briefly, was Ford was on the floor and Escobar walks over to the ropes and he sees Ford kneeling or kind of bent over. He's in a stationary position on the floor by the apron. And Escobar grabs the top rope and what is it, the plancha, where he just jumps up and goes sideways over the thing, not head first. Is that what that is? The plancha?
The plancha is, what did you say?
He just pulls on the rope and jumps over and just drops down sideways.
That is a plancha, and a tope, I believe, is through the ropes.
Well, whatever the fuck it was, he jumped over the top rope, and the guy wasn't moving, but he missed him completely anyway. He just went down beside of him and lightly slapped him on the back with his hand. I'm like, and one of the announcers said, a glancing blow. And then he rolled him back in, but then Dawkins, the partner, was there to post him. So apparently, I guess, Ford forgot, hey, maybe I should stand up and catch this fucking guy, because he's got to be out here. I don't know. So Dawkins posts him. The other LWO guy attacks Dawkins. Dawkins nails him. Escobar hits Dawkins, slides in, and Ford rolls him up and pulls tights 1, 2, 3. And then they beat him up a little more, and here comes Carlito and makes a save. The heels just powdered, no contact. So, okay, they're all still mad. And now we're 30 minutes into the fucking show. Did you see the purely dreary segment?
No, I thought we had a deal. We didn't have to watch them.
Well, I watched it on fast forward just to describe what it was, because even I was surprised that they went to have a spa day and they were soaking their feet when the Brawling Brutes came into the spa.
Oh, no.
And attacked them from behind and gave them swirlies in the foot baths. So apparently they're doing one segment on every program now for the AEW fans.
Who's going to take care of the spa owner?
I don't know.
That poor lady saved up her whole life to have her own spa, and then these wrestlers come in and tear it up.
Moved all the way over here from Prague to start that business from scratch, and what happens?
Officer, I knew something was wrong as soon as these two guys walked in.
Yeah, they didn't look like they belonged here. But why? Who is this entertaining to? How starved for entertainment would you have to be? Are you talking about somebody that's been in a medically induced coma for 30 years and is just glad to be able to see colors again? Are you talking about someone from the deepest, darkest jungles of Antarctica that's never seen television?
Maybe they do one segment a week for Vince.
Anyway, then we get back to a little bloodline business because Paulie and Solo were in the locker room and Jimmy came in and he's all happy and he's bragging about Raw and he's doing the motor mouth thing and he's aggravating Paulie. And then this was a new one. They were in their locker room, right? Paul, Solo, Jimmy Uso. And as Jimmy's doing that, Paul looks up toward behind where the camera is and suddenly is like, ooh, like he sees something. And then they cut to a shot of Cena in the parking garage walking into the building to the arena. But we didn't see that on the monitor because the shot wasn't up on a television monitor until Paul reacted to it. So does he have X-ray vision that he looked through the wall and saw Cena walking into the building?
As much as I'm against wacky gimmicks, X-ray vision Paul Heyman is one I'm interested in.
He might be able to make it work.
He could make it work. He wouldn't abuse his powers. He would know when to use it, who to use it with, where the camera was.
I have a feeling he'd spend a lot of time outside the women's locker room. All right, but however he saw him or foretold of his presence, reading the tea leaves or whatever, we come back from the break. Here comes John Cena. And again, he comes out like a star. Not only are the people reacting, but remember I've talked about numerous times on all these programs, especially AEW, with the not ready for primetime players over there who've never been on television at all, and nobody's been able to get it through to them how to do it. They just walk down to the ring like a goddamn guy waiting on a bus, Hangnail Page or Jungle Boy, just mope on down. John Cena comes out like a star. He's got energy. He's got emotion. He's fired up. He's making it an event. He doesn't just come out in sweatpants and a hoodie with moop face. How is this hard to figure out?
I don't know how, but it's interesting how few guys come up today with the idea of being a star or treating themselves like stars, like guys like John Cena figured out how to do. Instead, it's a sea of Garganos.
Oh my, the Gargano Sea.
The Gargano Sea.
That's where
you go. Speaking of moop face, that's where you go.
When you are programmed with Johnny Same Face, that means you're being banished to the Gargano Sea. All right. Well, anyway, here for Cena, the fans chanted, "Thank you, Cena." And it was big ovation, blah, blah, blah. But he started the promo. He's down because everybody's talking about the streak. He's got a 2002-day streak going of not winning a televised singles match. His last win was in 2018. And of course, how many matches has he had the past 5 years? And then televised single matches, even fewer than that, blah, 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 right? But it was great they came up with that because the people automatically thought he was teasing, talking about retirement. And he led them down that path and teased it, but then turned it around and said, but I believe in myself. I believe in the fans. I believe in all this. And now's the time to turn the math around. It's going to be a bad night for anybody brave enough to walk through that curtain because I'm going to win a match, right? And they brought the house down. They loved that. Yes, get anybody out there. We want to see this. And here comes Solo, the solo music, and he's making the entrance. And people are like, oh, shit. And he steps in the ring. And at that point, Brian, did you notice what I noticed when Solo and Cena are in the ring for this match that he's challenged for?
I'm not sure. What did you notice?
There was no referee.
Well, yeah, of course. It was he was accepting a challenge, not necessarily a match.
Well, no, but no, he said, I have gone 5 years without winning a televised singles match, and tonight is the time to turn the math around and change all that. It's going to be a bad night for anybody brave enough to walk through the curtain. Solo comes out, but there's no referee, there's no announcement. They just get in a fight. And then immediately Jimmy comes in, super kick. Of course, it was 1 foot away from Cena's head, and then Solo threw kicks like Cena was a Fabergé egg because they don't want to hurt the golden goose. But then a hooded figure comes down and pulls Jimmy out and starts wailing on him, and it's Jey. And they have a big fight on the floor, and the security, the referees come out. And in the ring, Cena ducks a spike and gives Solo the attitude adjustment. And the heels powder. And at that point, Cena's the only one in the ring. Even Jey's still out on the floor or wherever. And Cena does the big celebration. The people are going crazy. He's celebrating not winning a match. But it worked. That whole thing was concocted just to get John Cena out there to take 1 bump and do 2 moves or whatever. And the people they didn't give a shit. They reacted to that like it was a 30-minute fucking match instead of the 30-minute matches that they have that they've made unimportant and nobody reacts to at all.
They react better to Cena now than they did in what we would consider his prime.
Yes, they were booing the shit out of him then.
Yeah.
But much like with TNA, modern wrestling has created a situation where people are nostalgic for fucking Drek.
That moment where Jey Uso took off the hood and revealed his face and the audience reaction, he's the perfect example of a guy I love in all these segments, and when I see him wrestle, it's like, I'll wait for the finish and whatever's going to happen with the drama. But he's awesome in every segment he's in. And Cena is as over today as he's ever been. And they keep getting him on these shows until he goes back to work. See, I think they thought he was going to go back, and the actors are still on strike. The writer's strike was settled. The actors are still on strike.
Well, are the actors being pricks about this whole thing? They're better than the writers?
No, I think the studios may be the ones being pricks, and they don't want to give the actors, again, the actors have a lot of concerns, whether it's revenue from various forms of technology that were not there in the past, or the future of AI and how it would affect basically creating but synthetic versions of these actors in the future. So there's a lot of questions that have to be answered, but
hey, yeah, that'd be a great thing for the studios to put in, or for the WWE to put in. If you get hurt during the filming of our fucking deal or during our program with you on our television, we have the right to substitute an AI-generated hologram in your place.
Think of how many things in wrestling history would have changed if no one ever needed time off. You could finish whatever program you had booked.
Good Lord. For the positive and the negative, that would be mind-altering. Anyway, speaking of altering people's minds, so apparently now there's going to be issues between Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis, the various general managers of the 2 programs, because Jey Uso was pissed off in the back, but Aldis and Pearce were arguing about whether it was Jimmy's fault or Jay's fault, because one screwed up one guy's match on his show and the other guy screwed it up, blah, blah, blah. So Aldis fines Jey $10,000 and kicks him out of the building. And Jey ain't going to go. And Adam Pearce says, I'll walk you out. Jey, it's okay. And then Aldis said, that's a good idea. Security, take both of them out. And then Pearce said, are you really going to kick me out of this building? You heard what I said. Well, let the games begin. So now we're going to have general manager strife and turmoil here. That'll be better than the matches.
You know what? I'm all for it. If they treat it seriously, these 2 guys could pull it off, and watching the gamesmanship between these 2 on this show would be good. And this is a way to... I joked about it last week, and we had to get Pearce versus Aldis at WrestleMania.
They might do it.
I think they may do it. And I may want to see it.
Yeah, and it'll probably be better than 90% of the other things that they'll have on the program.
It's better than having Aldis as another, baby face authority figure. Pierce has done good in that role because there's been nothing egregious. Like, it never, like, he had a wacky period where he just became a heel. But Aldis being a dickish authority figure who has Triple H's blessing is an interesting twist. They could really do something with that.
I'm putting my money on Pierce with the pile driver to go over in the match.
Oh.
But
I'm putting my money on Aldis. He'll get Pierce in some kind of maybe crossface and have Mickie James start singing. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Come on.
I'm kidding. She's actually talented.
She is very good. But speaking of very good, the next segment was very long. At the 9 o'clock hour, they send Logan Paul to the ring. And again, another star, another big name. And he does the promo, and he has a great, as we've talked about, heel dickish demeanor, which is probably, from what we hear, very true to life. And he brags about winning the fight he was in last week so easily and, knocked the guy. But now he's here talking about Rey Mysterio, saying it, everybody's thought I was going to call him out tonight. Well, I've already beat him a long time ago. But a lot has changed now because Rey has the U.S. title and Logan Paul wouldn't mind having that. So as it gets to the point where the crowd starts whatting him, here comes Rey Mysterio music and entrance and interrupts. And he tries to... The thing is, when they put when Rey was Rey Mysterio and he didn't have to talk all the time, he could do his shit. It seems to me like that he was cooler. But now that everybody knows he's old enough to have a son that's a foot taller than him, and he has to come out and respond to people in these dramatic readings that they do now in wrestling, does it take some of the superhero cool off of him? Just the vibe? What do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, this isn't like, how many guys that you were around in your life had a problem with their kid getting into the business because they didn't want themselves to look old? Some guys looked old already. Vern Gagne looked like an old man by the time Greg got in.
Yeah.
Lawler
Vern Gagne looked like an old man by the time Greg was born.
Yeah, but Lawler didn't. Dundee was kind of midway. But I don't think it takes away anything from Rey Mysterio.
Well, but I'm not talking about the son necessarily. I'm talking about the whole thing where now he has to talk a lot and he has the higher pitched voice and he was all action. Rey Mysterio, the cool matches and the cool outfit. And now they've got him out here trying to be an actor like everybody else. And, the material was fine. If you want the U.S. title, you remind me of Dominic. Great ability, lots of potential, and a big mouth. And then they say something in Spanish. And if you want the U.S. title, I'll give you the chance at Crown Jewel. And then both of them said something in Spanish. And then Logan Paul offers his hand, and Rey kind of reaches out, but is reluctant, and Logan grabs it and shakes it and walks off.
You didn't do that justice. That took a minute.
Well, yeah, it was very long.
It was like a weirdly long setup to the handshake of them slowly going in. I've never seen it that slow, take that long. Were they told, draw out the handshake, make it go as long as you can? It was awkward.
At one point, it was almost like Rey had gotten frozen, and he was like, I can't move. But, I mean, they're doing this, I guess, with Logan Paul because, again, like, who was it with Ricochet? So we can have some flying going on, I guess. But this is kind of a manufactured blood feud, isn't it? Backstory, reason for something to take place. Besides that, they want a high spot match.
I think they just want a Logan Paul match in Saudi Arabia.
Well, there you go. So then, oh my God, Austin Theory is now a regular tag team partner of Grayson Waller. We can't get away from it. And they had a tag team match against Cameron Grimes and Dragon Lee, Bruce's younger nephew. And to recap, Austin Theory is great. He's saddled with this slug as a partner, and that's going to do nothing for him because as good as he is, anything Grayson Waller is attached to is not going to work. I'm just telling you right now. And they're using Grimes as a preliminary guy, so people don't really care about him. And there was 4 minutes total of this match on the air on two sides of a 3-minute break. So the heels won. Did I miss any minute examination?
I didn't watch it, but this is a match I probably would have wanted to watch. But again, you wouldn't
have seen much of it.
That's the point. If there's a match, especially at this point of the show on SmackDown, it's just going to be commercials in between the next talking segment. If this was on a pay-per-view, I would watch this, and based on the 4 people in it, or the 3 people in Grayson Waller, I'd probably enjoy it. But it's not worth... If you're going through SmackDown and you're not watching it live, it's not worth it to watch the matches because you're not watching matches, you're watching clips of matches.
Yeah.
In between commercials.
So then Kathy Kelly sat down on Kevin Owens. No, I'm sorry, sat down with Kevin Owens. And talking about the bombshell trade now where Owens had to go to SmackDown because Jey came to Raw, even though we've shot the complete shit out of that by illustrating that the trade was the draft was never even. They drafted 5 people in 1 pick at one point. So, but he's not happy by being separated from his lifelong life partner, Sami Zayn, and they didn't get a chance to regain the tag team title. But SmackDown's a new opportunity and new faces that he's never had matches with. And the new faces that he said he'd never had matches with were Rey Mysterio, Sheamus, and the Brawling Brutes. If he came over just for that, he might should have stayed home.
I got nothing to add to this.
Kevin Owens versus the Brawling Brutes. I can't wait.
I can't wait to fast forward.
And next week, do not fast forward through Fox Network because SmackDown won't be on it. It's FS1 next week. And basically, they were out of talking segments at that point, so they put one more match on for the women's title, Charlotte versus Io Sky. And again, I love Charlotte. I'm not in any way interested really in watching a girl 1 foot shorter than her that they've put in this heel group with Bayley continue to fucking have the same match they always have. But fortunately, there wasn't really a lot to fucking avoid because they did 5 minutes of entrances and introductions. And then the bell rang and Charlotte tripped Io and Io slid out to the fucking floor and they went to the break in 10 seconds. And when they came back, they went 3 more minutes and had a nice few minutes of a match and went to break again. And I'm sure that Charlotte can have a good match with a Walmart cashier, but I need to get to the fucking point here. So, for the finish, Charlotte dumped Bayley over the announce desk. What's the other girl's name that's hurt? Tegan Knox.
No, that's right? Dakota Sky. Dakota Kai. Dakota Kai.
Dakota Kai. Dakota Kai. Do you have to say it like, is that the way? Dakota Kai.
You have to say Dakota Kai.
Dakota Kai. Well, Dakota Kai drew the referee, and Io grabbed the belt. When Charlotte hit Io with a spear, she speared the belt head first and knocked her own self out. And Io Sky pinned Charlotte 1, 2, 3, which is on par with the angle that I did where I actually pinned Bullet Bob Armstrong in Knoxville after he had already been knocked completely unconscious by one of my heels. It's that much of an upset in my mind. I don't know what the fuck they're thinking. It was like Milli Vanilli winning American Idol over Frank Sinatra. But then the heels got some heat. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, Cinderella story, Bianca Belair reappeared and made a big comeback and helped Charlotte out and cleared the ring. And that was the whole wrestling program.
Yes, it was. Another match I probably would have watched, but it was on SmackDown, broken up by commercials, so I didn't. It was on a pay-per-view. I'd really enjoy it, but that was SmackDown.
And again, 10 seconds has to be a new world record, right? To go to break after the bell.
Possibly.
And if the world title match was so important, why wouldn't you take breaks in the entrances rather than in the actual contest? Do they take breaks in the Super Bowl while the game is actually being played?
No.
No. Okay.